Backstory Origins.
Carnage belongs to a race of amorphous extraterrestrial parasites known as symbiotes, which form a symbiotic bond with their hosts and give them superhuman abilities. Originating as an offspring of Venom, Carnage is much more powerful than his parent's symbiote because of the symbiote's biology, and is in many ways a darker version of him. Like Venom, Carnage has had multiple hosts over the years, but his most famous one remains his first, serial killer Cletus Kasady, whose sadistic personality perfectly matches that of the symbiote. Other hosts include Ben Reilly, Carl Mullis, and Norman Osborn. In the continuity of Ultimate Marvel, the primary host of Carnage is Gwen Stacy. Since his conception, the character has been featured in various media adaptations, including films, television, series and video games. Carnage made his cinematic debut in his civilian identity, Cletus Kasady in Venom, 2018, played by Woody Harrelson, appearing in the post-credits scene, and will reprise the role in the sequel, Venom, Let There Be Carnage, 2021, in Sony's Spider-Man, when Eddie Brock's Venom symbiote soon returned to be bonded again, allowing Venom to escape prison. The symbiote left its offspring in the cell. Due to its alien mindset, the symbiote felt no emotional attachment to its offspring, regarding it as insignificant, and thus never communicated its existence to Brock via their telepathic link. The new symbiote then bonded with Brock's cellmate Cletus Kasady through a cut on his hand, transforming him into Carnage. 5-6. The bond between the Carnage symbiote and Kasady was stronger than the bond between Brock and the Venom symbiote. Cletus Kasady was also a serial killer and thought of as insane. As a result, Carnage is far more violent, powerful, and deadly than Venom. 7. Kasady and the symbiote would then be a main antagonist in Maximum Carnage, and Kasady would continually be the most recurring character to use the Carnage symbiote in many publications. The Carnage symbiote eventually transferred itself to Spider-Man, Ben Reilly, at the time, when Ben bonded with it in order to prevent it from hurting any innocent people, creating Spider-Carnage. Ben's willpower held out against the symbiote's murderous desires long enough for him to return it to Ravencroft. Reilly subsequently attempted to destroy the symbiote by subjecting himself to a potentially lethal blast of microwaves, but it escaped back to Kasady after the microwaves forced it to separate from him. After Kasady was lobotomized, he was broken out of prison by the Wizard and Claw, who intend to recruit him into the Frightful Four and turn him into their own version of Venom. After a failed attempt to control Kasady, Wizard transfers the symbiote to Dr. Carl Mullis. Dr. Mullis was enraged and under the influences of the symbiote tried to kill his teammates, but he was subdued by Claw and controlled by Wizard, who renames him Superior Carnage and equips him with weapons. 11. The trio are confronted by the Superior Spider-Man, and during their battle the Wizard loses his control over Carnage and he is fatally injured once Spider-Man accidentally drops him due to the shock of finding out Wizard read his mind and knows about Otto Octavius. Carnage, now free, goes on a rampage and starts to kill anyone in front of him. Claw tries to stop him, but due to his weapon being damaged he fails and realizes that the only way is for the Wizard to take back control. Both Carnage and Claw make their way outside. Carnage fights the Superior Spider-Man and admits that although he liked using weapons, for him ripping and slashing the bodies is better. Claw tries to get the Wizard to control Carnage again, but is killed by Carnage, and the explosion separates the symbiote from its host, only to bond with the injured Wizard. Following the events of Secret Empire, the Carnage symbiote was stolen from an old SHIELD storehouse by the then powerless Norman Osborn. 12. He initially found himself overwhelmed by the symbiote's desire for mindless slaughter when he allowed it to merge with him. 13. But he has been able to persuade the symbiote to let him take control of Carnage's powers to show it something other than boring mindless slaughter. 14. Using this combination of powers during the Go Down Swinging storyline, Norman is easily able to tear through Human Torch, Clash, Silk, Miles Morales, and Agent Anti-Venom. with the combination of the symbiote and the goblin serum rendering Carnage immune to its traditional weaknesses, eventually transferring part of the symbiote to his grandson Normie enough to turn him into a miniature version of Red Goblin. 15. The Carnage symbiote is seemingly destroyed by Spider-Man when he hits it with an exploding gas tank, however, because the symbiote was attached to Norman when Peter destroyed it. He wonders what sort of effect that might have had on his old foe's mind. Later, as Spider-Man visits Norman in Ravencroft, it's revealed that Norman's mind appears to have been completely fried and now believes that Spider-Man is actually Norman Osborn and he is Cletus Cassidy. It's not clear whether or not he's faking it or if he had actually lost his mind. Meanwhile, Harry manages to remove the Carnage symbiote from Normie. Not all of it has gone. Following the defeat of Cletus Cassidy, Carnage and the Gestalt symbiotes were absorbed by Eddie Brock, who later is given an offer to join the Avengers, but in the middle of his big day Carnage is able to overcome Venom and takes over. Eddie leaves before things get out of hand, leaving the Avengers with strange reactions. Eddie gets back home and tries to quiet the Carnage in a way he has done before with Venom, heavy medication. Eddie passes out and has a vision of Null. This causes Eddie to take off and head towards the island where he long ago had thought he had killed Spider-Man and where he remained until the emergence of Carnage. But Carnage catches onto Eddie's thoughts and causes the plane to crash land. Separated from the Carnage symbiote, Eddie is ready to face it off. 17. But after a narrow escape that cost him his left hand. 18. Eddie was eventually rescued by the Avengers, who promptly nuked the island to finally eradicate the symbiotes still on it. 19. Meanwhile, in order to find his father, Dylan discovers a unique ability. He has to track and control symbiotes, which he uses to find Eddie and learns a terrible truth. Eddie never left the island at all. Instead, he has been bonded against his will to Carnage. 20. Using the Venom symbiote, Dylan tries to separate his father from Carnage but only allows the Carnage symbiote to take Dylan to his father's mindscape. There, Dylan is able to finally free himself and Eddie from Carnage's control, but the symbiote survives the ordeal and is able to leave the island too by bonding with a shark. 21. As Eddie Brock explained. 27. The Carnage symbiote was born with abilities even more singular than those of its progenitor, due to the fact that it gestated in an environment alien to it, Earth. The alien symbiote endows Cassidy with physical strength greater than that of Spider-Man and Venom combined. 27, and shape-shifting abilities, allows him to project a web-like substance from any part of his body including the formation of weapons, and enables him to plant thoughts into a person's head using a symbiote tendril. 28. Much like Spider-Man, Cassidy has the ability to cling to virtually any surface, and has a version of Spider-Man's spider sense, as the symbiote can relay information to him from any angle and grants Cassidy the ability to see in any direction, warning him of incoming threats. 29-30. He can rapidly crawl, walk, or run across even slick surfaces. The Carnage symbiote has abilities similar to those of Spider-Man as a direct result of the Venom symbiote's first host, Peter Parker, who transferred some of Spider-Man's power into their symbiote. He is able to regenerate damaged body tissues much faster and more extensively than that of an ordinary human. This has been shown as powerful enough to allow him to regenerate from losing any part of body, from head to feet. 31-32, however, after being torn in half by the Sentry, he was fitted with artificial legs, but this occurred while he was separated from the symbiote. 9. Cassidy is also immune to the effects of all earthly diseases and infections as long as he remains bonded with the symbiote. Like Venom, the symbiote is vulnerable to sound, to a much smaller degree than Venom, and heat, to a much larger degree than Venom. 33. And is undetectable to Spider-Man's spider sense. Unlike Venom, Carnage can launch parts of his symbiote at enemies in the form of solid weapons, such as darts, spears, knives, axes, etc., although they disintegrate into dust within 10 seconds of leaving Carnage's body. 29. Carnage also has the unique ability to warp his appendages into different arms, legs, and even wings. This is shown on several occasions when Carnage mutates his fingers and arms into what look like large swords. Cassidy has full control over the size, shape, color, usually red and black, texture, and hardness of his symbiote, and any part thereof. Like Venom, he can make his symbiote look like normal clothing, which he has done on rare occasion, or act as camouflage. With the symbiote bonded to his bloodstream, he can regenerate his costume from scratch simply by bleeding. His symbiote has the peculiar ability to block its parents, Venom's, ability to sense and track it. 33. The symbiote is also able to rapidly adapt to new environments. When Cassidy was taken into space by the Sentry, 34, the Carnage symbiote was able to save his life by growing small sacs around his mouth that converted carbon dioxide into oxygen, allowing Cassidy to stay alive long enough for him to be recovered. 9. In some interpretations, the Carnage symbiote is vampiric, feeding on and thus endangering his victims by only a mere touch. 34. The symbiote has also shown the ability to call parts of itself back to the main symbiote, reintegrating them. It can also send irresistible commands to parts of itself that are in technology. These were used to break the bones of the Iron Rangers when they challenged Carnage while wearing symbiote-enhanced technological exosuits. Using these last two abilities, Carnage absorbed the 5 Iron Rangers, grew to an enormous size, and became blue. 9. Finally, Carnage's powers have always been abnormally enhanced from the maniacal will and insane worldview that Cassidy has had from the age of 8 years old. 35. Cassidy sees chaos and random, undirected violence as reality, and considers order and virtue to be illusions. 36. He takes an almost artistic pride in his mayhem. 23. Likes to leave a trail for others to follow, usually leaving the phrase Carnage rules written in his own blood.